What's up guys, Harper7000 here, coming to you with a new deck profile. I said I was waiting until the next format before I would make another deck profile because it would probably change a lot of my decks, but Banlist has been confirmed by Shriek and also recently confirmed by the TCG's website to be exactly the same as the OCG list. So basically this format is going to be exactly the same as the last format but without plants, and agents got lost 2 Earths, like they really care about that. But so yeah, this deck I made last format, or this format still I guess, specifically to beat what was becoming the Tier 1, mainly Inzektors and Wind-Ups. As you're going to see, and people have been talking about lately, the big 3 decks to beat when it comes to being really competitive is Inzektors, Wind-Ups, and Rabbit Lodgia. This one pretty much auto wins against the first 2. Doesn't do too bad against Rabbit Lodgia either. You definitely have to play smart, but then that's when skill comes in. And siding. There's not a whole lot you can side against Rabbit Lodgia, but we'll get into that. So, I'll explain a little bit more what this deck does and why it insta-wins to the Tier 1, but let's just get into the deck list first. First off, we have Malefic Cyber End Dragon, 3 of them, and then 3 Malefic Stardust Dragon. They're pretty much the same thing, just one has 1500 less attack and can protect your field spell. They serve as extra aggression to this deck. Gravekeepers in general haven't been doing very well, mainly because of Dark World when they came out, because they were really scared to use Royal Tribute, and it's just not a control format anymore. This deck, though, lets you be a control deck, but at the same time, it's not the same Gravekeepers from a few formats ago. They're able to have bosses, and lots of bosses, but they don't take much. I mean, if they warning it, okay, that's a 1-for-1 removal. It doesn't do you much harm, and you're probably going to have another one to drop too, and so they just wasted 2,000 life points. They do need a field spell, that's a weakness of them, but you have the Necro Valley obviously because of Gravekeepers and Skill Drain. So they're rarely ever dead because you have 3 command to search the Necro Valley, 3 Necro Valley, 3 Skill Drain, and then 3 Potted Dwelly to search it out if you don't already have it. So pretty much you're going to open with one, a way to keep Malefics on the field. Next up we have the Gravekeepers engine, 3 Commandant to get your Necro Valley, 3 Spy, it's good plussing. You do run Skill Drain, so it's not quite as good as normal Gravekeepers, but Recruiter, he's good. He's a staple, and Gravekeepers gets under Skill Drain. Descendant, good. He's a beater. Again, Skill Drain, but whatever. The main point is that you have beaters, and it stops them. It's going to hurt. Skill Drain is going to hurt them a lot more than it's going to hurt you for not being able to use Descendant. And then finally, 2 Maxi. You pretty much have to run at least 2 Maxi this format. It does instant win against Wind-Ups. I already did mention that. But if they go first and they get the loop off, then there's a good chance that you'll lose still. Because that's their main point. So if they go first, you're gonna want Maxi, and also it's just good against lots of different decks. Even Rabbit Lodgia, you can get a few draws off of it because they're gonna have to XYZ into Lodgia if they use Rabbit, otherwise their stuff's gonna die. So you'll get a +1 off of that. Pretty much anything, special summons. Control isn't very viable anymore. I'm trying to bring it back, but no, you're not going to see a whole lot of other control decks. If you do, you can side it out, and that's fine. But you're probably going to win against the control too, and that's another great thing about this deck. You win against other control decks. Your stick is bigger than theirs. I was testing this against Phantom X the other day, and you guys know him. He's a good player, but it just destroyed him. He was playing Hero Stun. Gravekeepers just win against that, and with the added Malefic's power into it, they just can't do anything. The only thing that would maybe would give it trouble is TG Stun, but it's on its way out the door with Striker being limited, Tengu being semi-limited, so it's kind of on its last leg. I doubt people will play it next format. Next up, for spells, we have 2 of the super staples, Dark Hole and Heavy Storm. Don't run Reborn for obvious reasons, because Necro Valley keeps you from using it, and you almost always have Necro Valley out. Speaking Necro Valley, 3 Necro Valley. It's a very good card in the deck. It gives your Gravekeepers a boost. It stops anything being infected from the grave, except for their own effects, and so it stops Inzektors. You play it, they can't do anything. They're just done. Unless they get like a Hornet from hand or something like that, and then they can pop one thing, and then it would have to be Necro Valley if they want to keep going. So it stops it, and it's really good. Next up, Duality. Didn't play it in some of the versions of Malefics before, but there's no real reason not to run 3. You're not really ever going to special summon, except with Spy and with your Malefics. And you will drop your Malefics 1 at a time, so because you only really can drop them 1 at a time. So there's no real OTKing. So you drop it, use Duality next turn. The only time it's ever really clogged is if I have several Malefics and then several Dualities. But whatever. 2 Typhoon, that's pretty standard. Third is Sided. This trap lineup should be pretty familiar to you guys who have seen my decks lately. It's my staple trap lineup for this format. Mirror Force, Torrential Tribute, Dust Shoot, Solemn Judgment, 2 Solemn Warning. This is for next format though, but all it's really going to change is take out the Dust Shoot because it's getting banned, add in the second Torrential Tribute, which I felt was a good call, one of the only good calls on the ban list. Just take out the cheapness that lets you see exactly what your opponent has so you can run them over like crazy and add in more control. So just do that whenever Dueling Network lets you. Next up, 3 Skill Drain. I'll just say this is the best card in the deck. It gives so much control. Not only do you need the 3 for your Malefics, but it just stops so much. If you, like I said, in the Wind-Up and Inzektor matchup, they just lose. They can't do anything. Even if they could do something, I mean, they destroy stuff. They destroy your hand. They discard your hand. They're cheap. That's how they win. They don't have any boss monsters, really, to speak of. And even the stuff that is good, like Wind-Up Zen Mines that they can get easily, it turns it into like a vanilla with 2100 defense. And that you can easily run over with anything, pretty much. Yeah, with any of your Malefics. It's just a really good card. Next up, Starlight Road. You do run 10 traps, and you run a field spell. You can also use it against like Dark Hole and Mirror Force. Generally, you're not going to have more than 2 monsters on the field, but that's enough to use it. So you have to run at least 1. 2's probably overkill. Next up for the extra, 3 Cyber and Dragon, obviously. 3 Stardust Dragon, obviously. You run the 3 Malefics, and then for Stardust Dragon, you have Starlight Road. The rest of the extra deck is pretty irrelevant, honestly. You want to have like 2 rank 4 beaters, I guess. But other than that, do whatever you want. This is my one, though. I decided to get options. So you have Pearl, because he's a beat stick. A lot of time you're going to have skill drain up, so that's all any of your XYZ will be. Utopia, because he's also a beat stick, he can stall if skill drain's not up. Roach, because he's alright. But skill drain's up a lot of the time again, so usually you're just going to go into Utopia or Pearl. And even then, you're not going to XYZ much, because Gravekeepers is about normal summoning, unless you just need to get over something that you can't already. Next up, the 2 combo duo of XYZ, Emerald and Shane. I think I maybe used Shane once if I just really needed to get a Cyber in to my hand next turn, but again, it's kind of irrelevant. And if you're just going to use this for TCG, because it is made especially for the TCG, which still has priority, these 3 are OCG, but whatever, it just does not matter. Like I said, the rest of the extra, besides the 3 Cyber End and Stardust, it's kind of irrelevant as long as you have a few rank 4 beaters. The rank 3s, again, you're not going to really have it unless you have 2 recruiters, which there's very few times where you're going to want XYZ when you have 2 recruiters. But in just case that, just for options, you have Acid Golem, Leviathan, Zen Mines. You probably will go for Acid Golem because that's usually what you're going to need, something big. And Skill Drain takes away all of the bad effects. Finally, Chimera Tech, because you side Cyber Dragon. Next up for the side, I run 3 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. That may seem a little bit weird, since I do run the Skill Drain, and all of my monsters are dark anyway, but this is mainly for the Dark World matchup. Because if any deck really is going to give it trouble, it's probably going to be Dark Worlds or Logia. Because Dark Worlds, their stick can sometimes be bigger than yours, and they run their own field spell, so that can be kind of annoying. And it's not just skill drain, but for dark monsters, it stops the stuff the effects of dark monsters in the grave as well, which all of them do activate in the grave, so it's just negated. Even it stops Trance Archfiend if you remove their Grapha or whatever. But this, you don't necessarily have to use Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, but you need something against Dark Worlds in your side deck. Next up, 2 Bottomless. Probably one of the better cards that you can side. Gets rid of Grapha, gets rid of the dinos for rabbits. It's just extra good removal in case you need extra removal. Thunder King, I thought about replacing the maxes with this, decided not to, but you definitely do need to side it. It helps, especially referring again to Logia, but that's a very relevant matchup, especially if you're going to use this for YCS. Smashing, kind of the same thing. It's good generic removal. Also, it forces their Logia. This deck's all about making your opponent do stuff. They make it so they have to negate. There are other ways to kill Logia. I realize that. You can set Spy when Necro Valley's on the field. They'll attack into it. They take 100 damage because that's 2,500 defense. Special summon a Descendant. Use its effect to pop it next turn. So the Logia matchup isn't really that bad, but it's a very good deck, so you want to be prepared for it. Cyber Dragon. For a number of matchups, mainly for Karakuri though, and stuff that spams in mines first turn. Deck Devastation Virus. It's a really good card here. It has lots of targets, but I haven't actually found myself siding it in that much because it already wins against decks that have small monsters because they need the either effects or lots of special summoning, both of which are pretty well controlled by this deck. So, but it's a good card, so keep it in here. The third Typhoon for stun decks, well, not just for stun decks. It's for game 2 and 3 when they're probably going to side into Krees and stuff to keep your Seal Drain from going off. So it's I almost always side it in, actually. There's a few decks where you're not going to side it in. And then the third Max for the wind-up matchup. Honorable mentions in this deck, it would be Mind Control. I really try to fit it in, but all of these cards I feel like I need. And then Beast King Barbaros. I used him in all the Malefic builds I had except for this one. But it's a very good card. I ended up thinking that the Gravekeeper engine in full would be better than just a few of them. But Barbaros is still a good card, so you might want to consider siding it or maybe tech something out for it. What you would tech out, I don't know. But it's a nice extra beat stick. I just ended up thinking that you don't need it because you have your 3 Cyberends and 3 Stardusts. But yeah. Well, tell me what you think, guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and comment and like and tell me what you think. Peace out, guys.